Welcome back to my channel. It is now week 7 of the NFL season, and in today's video I will be breaking down the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants. This is a very critical game for each team, of course, because it's in the division and because this will largely decide who is in second place in the division, with the Cowboys falling apart. Starting off, how have these teams done so far? The Philadelphia Eagles are currently 3-2, but they are a very shaky 3-2. They beat the Browns last week by 4 points. A lot of fans were not happy with that. A lot of fans wanted them to win by more, but the Eagles simply do not win by double digits. They also beat the Saints in a close game because the offense was terrible, but the defense was amazing. And then they beat the Packers in week 1, which was kind of a mishmash of good and bad. Then they have 2 losses, one to the Falcons, which was a devastating loss that they absolutely should have won, and then their second loss was to the Buccaneers, who seem to just own Jalen Hurts whenever A.J. Brown is not playing, and that was an absolute blowout, really hurting me and all the other Eagles fans out there. The Giants, on the other hand, are 2-4, about a game and a half behind the Eagles, but they have looked pretty decent, especially on the defensive side on the ball, and they have wins against the Seattle Seahawks 29-20 and the Browns 21-15. However, their 4 losses are pretty devastating, with a loss against the Vikings in week 1, which was a blowout. It looked bad at first, but it turns out the Vikings are good. A loss to the Commanders in week 2, which was a real tough one, because this is where the Commanders took off and the Giants stayed the same. It was 21-18, and it was a rough one for the Giants. This was the game where the Commanders had 7 field goals to win the game. Then to the Cowboys, actually a close game, 20-15. Does this mean the Giants are decent or the Cowboys are terrible? Still to be determined. Probably they're both just average. And then finally last week they lost to the Bengals 17-7, but it was a lot closer than that watching the game. So each of these teams are kind of, I guess, disappointing. The Eagles have definitely been disappointing compared to the Super Bowl aspirations us fans have had going into the year. And the Giants, well, they're 2-4, so they can't be happy with that. Although I would say this is better than expected, actually, because their defense looks like a top 5 to top 10 defense. That's enough for my general recap. Now to the general injury news for each team. Of course, there's some game time decisions that I will not know until the game starts. But as of now, the day before the game, what are the Eagles' injuries? So they do have a few big ones. Dallas Goedert, he hurt his hamstring. He's out for this week, might be out for a few more weeks. The biggest one, Jordan Mailata, the left tackle, has been put on injured reserve with a injured hamstring. He was shown going off the field in crutches against the Browns. He's going to be gone for a while. I haven't heard anything saying he's gone for the season or anything like that, but this is probably a 4 to 6 week injury, and the Eagles are going to need to learn how to play without him because he's gone for a while. And then there are 2 more people who creeped up on the injury report but should play. One is Darius Slay, of course, the great corner, formerly great, now decent corner, best corner of the Eagles. And the second is Carter, the best defensive player on the Eagles, got hurt in practice. He hurt his shoulder on Wednesday, but he is likely to play. On the Giants side of the ball, there's some injuries as well because, well, this is football. First off, Kayvon Thibodeau is on IR. He's not their best defensive end, but he's good. He's startable. He's serviceable. Andrew Thomas, one of their tackles, had a season-ending surgery on his foot. So, big loss for the Giants' offensive line. And then finally, Adoree Jackson, one of the Giants' corners, has been ruled out with a neck injury. There are several people questionable, such as Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence. However, they are definitely expected to play as of right now. Okay, so now how do the teams match up? Starting with the Eagles' offense versus the Giants' defense. Of course, this is strength on strength, or expected strength on expected strength. Jalen Hurts, a few years ago, was a potential MVP over the past year or so, he has struggled mightily. So far this year, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 fumble loss. So this is not the best. He has actually had better completion percentage than he has in the past with 67.5. It used to be above 70 about a week or two ago. And this is because when he's not throwing interceptions, Jalen Hurts is playing pretty well. But then on the other hand, he's throwing interceptions, especially in the red zone, that have been absolutely killer. The Eagles' offensive line has been solid so far this year, of course, but how will they react without Mailata? Then, to finish out the passing game, is the receiving threats. Smith and A.J. Brown are back. Calcaterra, the backup tight end, actually caught some passes last week, but Dallas Goedert is out. I, of course, would rather have Smith and A.J. Brown than Dallas Goedert. So this Eagles offense should be coming back together after missing some of its key weapons. And this is not to mention the running game, which has Jalen Hurts, of course, even though he hasn't ran that well this year, and Saquan Barkely, the former Giant, in a revenge game, who has had an amazing season, has looked absolutely phenomenal. And he almost had a breakout touchdown run last week against the Browns, and then he ran into Mailata. Happens. So, this is a loaded offense. The talent is there. Are they currently the best offense in the NFL? No. They are not. They're not actually anywhere near the best offense in the NFL right now. The Eagles' offense is putting up 21.2 points per game. That's good for about 16th in the NFL. Nowhere near the 30 points that the Lions are putting up. Will the coaches, Sirianni and crew, will they be able to figure it out? Will they learn how to score in the first quarter, which they have not done the entire year? That's right, they haven't scored in the first quarter yet. It is week 7. Yeah, that's kind of sad. The Giants' defense, the guys they will be going up against, are a legitimate defense. Their defensive line is probably a top 5 defensive line in the NFL. It's just been good all around. Brian Burns is paying off. Dexter Lawrence has 7 sacks already. This is crazy. They have 26 sacks on the year. That's an insane amount. For the reference, the Eagles are at 11 sacks on the year. One of the first matchup in this. Giants defensive line, especially Brian Burns versus backup tackle on the Eagles offensive line. Jalen Hurts does not always deal with pressure very well, so this will be a big test. Although, if he can stay in the pocket, if they can withhold the Giants defense, the Eagles wide receivers should be able to get open against the Giants corners, especially without one of their best corners due to injury. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith could easily have great games this week, as honestly, they could any week. In the running game, this is where I think the Eagles will succeed more. The Giants are currently giving up 5.2 yards per rush on the ground. Their defense, their rush defense has not been amazing. Saquon Barkley, as long as he's not trying to do too much in his revenge game, should have an amazing week. And I would really like to see the Eagles start rushing the ball in the first quarter. Start it slow. Don't do these shot plays to start the game off. Start slow, score on the first possession, and set the tone there. On the Giants defense side, what do they want to do? Of course, rush the passer, make them one-dimensional, 3rd and long, 2nd and long, get sacks on Jalen Hurts, and of course, get some interceptions, get some turnovers, because this is something that the Eagles have done all season, is turn the ball over. So that is how the Giants defense wins this matchup, purely through turnovers. But it may sound ridiculous, but it's actually not, because the Eagles do it all the time. Then the opposite side of the ball. If you like the video so far, please consider liking and subscribing. But back to the video. Now, Giants offense versus Eagles defense. This is a classic weakness on weakness so far. The Giants' offense is actually one of the worst offenses in the NFL. They've put up 16 points per game so far this season. And they have only put up over 20 points twice this season. If you didn't know, that's bad. Daniel Jones has been boring. He's just been boring. He hasn't been great. He has a few passing touchdowns, a few interceptions. I'd say he's been semi-safe. He hasn't been killing this team, but he has not been good. He has not led this team to victories either. He's just kind of been sitting there. What he needs is his weapons to win the games for him. And Neighbors is back this week. Neighbors, their excellent rookie wide receiver, is what powers this whole offense. The question is, can Darius Slay or Quinion Mitchell, whoever goes up against him, slow him down? And honestly, no one has slowed him down so far this season. So that will be a very tough matchup, and Daniel Jones hyper targets him. They have some other wide receiver threats, such as Sladen, Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson. These are all decent number 3 wide receivers, but they're not that scary to a good defense. Lucky for the Giants, the Eagles are not a good defense, so they could get schemed open. As far as offensive line versus Eagles defensive line, I would say neither is that much of a strength. The Eagles defensive line has very few sacks on the year, has gotten very little pressure, especially if Jalen Carter is not playing, and the Giants offensive line is below average. It's not very good, especially losing one of their tackles. So, honestly, that could become a bit of a stalemate. I don't see the Eagles getting that many sacks, maybe 2. That would be a good game for the Eagles defense, to be honest, and that is not that disruptive. And then finally, the Giants rushing game versus the Eagles rushing defense. The Giants have had a decent rushing game with Tracy, the rookie, the past few weeks. However, Singletary is coming back. We don't really know who will be the starter between the two of them. They should be splitting work, it appears. But the Eagles have left gaping holes 3 or 4 of the weeks so far this season. Bijan Robinson killed him, and the Browns could have killed him if they had a good running back. That is up to the Giants to capitalize on. The Giants' offense wins this game by slowly marching down the field and not turning the ball over, and, that's pretty much it. So, in recap, the Eagles are the more talented team. I think we all know that. But they make mistakes. They are not a buttoned-up team, at least not so far, and they turn the ball over a lot. The Giants can win this game by causing pressure on Jalen Hurts and causing turnovers. And then Daniel Jones on the other side of the ball, just slowly marching down the field, scoring maybe 15 points and getting, maybe a defensive touchdown. What do I think will actually happen? I think the Eagles are going to win. I am, of course, probably too confident. I think it will be 24-19, a one-score game, of course. Eagles cover, barely. And the Eagles fans won't be too happy, and the Giants fans won't be too happy. But we move on. The Eagles make enough big plays to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley to get the win, but is not a commanding victory. What do you think will happen? Leave it down in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, and I will see you later.